Well, good day. Welcome to another episode of Raw Report. How are you doing today? Today, I am going to go through. I'm going to go through some things that need to take place in America starting today. I believe there should be multiple parties. I don't think we should rely on the two-party system. I think the more the better. Major parties can negotiate with smaller parties to get things done, or smaller parties can gain more traction if they had the ability to get the same level of exposure as major parties. I believe in ranked choice voting. I believe you should make the choice first, second, and third about who you want on the ticket. I believe governor and lieutenant governor should be done by ranked choice voting. I believe president and vice president should be done by ranked choice voting. I don't believe that a man or a woman or a party or organization should be able to pick who's VP. I believe that power should be done to the people and the people only. I'm a strong proponent for ballot initiatives. I believe there's a lot of things we don't need legislation. We don't need the Congress or Senate to vote for. Case in point, we had to go through hell and high water in New York City and New York State just to get the $15 minimum wage here in New York City first, and then other places. It's not $15 an hour all over New York State. I think it is in California, but not in all over the United States, New York State. Only the city of New York got $15 minimum wage. Heck, I worked on the campaign to help bring minimum wage to the airport to $19 an hour in the year 2023. That's 3 more years from now. Well, 2 more, almost 2 more. So I believe in ballot initiative. I believe some things we shouldn't have to go through the red tape of trying to lobby people, trying to elect people to get stuff done for you, and most of them not going to do it for you. So I believe it's important that you put things on the ballot. Case in point, the Florida legislation and the governor ain't no way in God's green, on God's green earth, blue heaven, and red hell that Ron DeSantis and those Republicans was going to put $15 an hour through law. But you don't have to do that through ballot initiatives, giving the people the opportunity to vote for it. They were successful in voting for $15 an hour for Florida. Now, predicated, anytime you vote for a ballot initiative when it comes to wages, it's going to be progressive. But they got it. They got it. $15 an hour were voted by the people. The same thing can be done with health care. Right now, the Democratic Party had the majority in California to pass Medicare for all. But the numbnut crooked politicians from the Democratic Party to the Republican decided to shoot it down. Same thing we hear in New York. We all voted for marijuana legislation. The bill sits on Governor Cuomo's desk. Governor Cuomo said, if you reelected me against Cynthia Nixon and my Republican opponent in the general, I'm going to pass the bill. Well, I ain't got no watch on. It ain't happened yet. Heck, we even changed the date to register to vote in the primaries in New York. They had it way early in August during the presidential election year, and we pushed it up to a later stage. It was sitting on his desk. Until we put the political pressure on him, it would still be sitting on his desk today. These pump politicians ain't going to do nothing for you until you apply the political pressure. But there's sometimes when you don't have to deal with them. I'm going to talk about the black agenda. I'm going to be talking about various black agendas. This message is for my black community. This message is also for any Asians, any Latinos, any LGBTQ, wherever you stand. You know black people has always been there in the fight for you. When it came to women's rights, you name it. When it comes to labor rights, you name it. We are always at the forefront of these fights for betterment. Black people. Well, black people going to have a fight. And we ain't going to let no black people, we ain't going to let no party, we ain't going to let no bootlicks, we ain't going to let nobody stop us from this endeavor. See, Dr. King said when he first went to March on Washington, he realized after that, he led his people into a burning bush. He realized, yes, I got them civil rights, but I didn't get them equal rights. My people don't have the same economic fortitude as anybody else in this country. My people helped build this country, and they should have equal financial stability in this country as whites. But they don't. So yeah, I'm watching for labor rights and things like that, but I'm about to pull a switch. I need people on the labor rights movement and any other movement to back this particular movement I'm about to do, back us up. I'm going to Washington, D.C. to get my check. We come to get our check. He wasn't talking about the labor movement. He was talking about black people. He enlisted people like Stokely Carmichael and a whole host of people who were really, really pushing for black empowerment and black equality. Got rid of John Lewis. Say, John Lewis, you ain't got it no more, man. We need somebody a little stronger. So Stokely Carmichael took over SNCC. That's why it pissed me off when Bill Clinton going to try to compare at John Lewis' funeral to try to make it seem like John Lewis was a better man than Stokely Carmichael. Don't get me wrong. I respect John Lewis for the work he did in civil rights and getting people legislating and things like that. But he ain't no Stokely Carmichael, man. Get out of here. That man was willing to die. He would have hurt you over his people. John Lewis would rather get hurt over his people. Stokely Carmichael would get hurting you over his people. We collectively going to have to get that spirit, that aggressive spirit of Stokely Carmichael. Sure, we love our neighbors. We love our brothers and sisters. We love our brothers and sisters in humanity. But in this endeavor, black lead. Black take the charge. You can support us by pushing our agenda in your community for support from the legislative branches and things like that within the community. But we're going to push a black agenda. See, what's happening right now is black people are starting to wake up to the power that they have over these political parties. Nobody's been loyal to the political process like black people. Not saying you guys are not loyal, but nobody's like us. I recently showed you the chart just in this election alone. 90% of blacks voted for Joe Biden. Majority of everybody else was under 50%. Should we do these things? Should we keep showing blind support, blind loyalty without asking for something in exchange? The problem is we go to people and ask for these things after they get the power instead of demanding it before you get the power. Riding off the notion of Frederick Douglass, power without a demand concede nothing. If you want power, a demand got to be attached to it. And the reason you don't have it is because you didn't put a demand attached to that power. We keep giving these political parties power, but we never put a demand out there in exchange for them to have the power. See, you making the demand is your power structure. If you don't have a demand on the table, you are draining yourself of power. That got to change. So get ready. In the next election next year coming up, in 2022 and in 2024, the ADOS movement is going to get bigger. The foundational black movement is going to join forces with the ADOS movement. We're going to find our common grounds and work together on it. But we will become unified. And whether outside groups want to support us or not, they ain't going to stop us. And shame if you don't join us because we always supporting you. Today I'm going to look at Ice Cube's Black Agenda, contract with Black America. We're going to go over that. This thing's been out for a while. It didn't just happen right before the election. Ice Cube was strong enough. How in the world are you going to call a man a coon who came up with America KKK album that talked about the system and white supremacy like a dog, and he talked about how white supremacy ran both parties. Close friends with Louis Farrakhan. But you're going to call him a coon. Only a coon would call a man like that a coon. Only a coon would call that man a coon. Ain't nothing coon in his body. He didn't support Donald Trump. The Black Agenda wasn't written by Republicans or Democrats. It was written by black people. Because black people are waking up. The reason we don't have, reason we have nothing is we haven't taken our power and made a demand for something. And we sit there and cringe and cower down when people get on us for making a demand. Are you freaking kidding me? Bro, you better get out of my way. Either you join us or move the hell out our way. Let's go over this Black Agenda. This Ice Cube contract with America. We're going to take our time and look at this. This is from PR News. Look at the date, August 22nd. This thing ain't just come in November or at the end of October. August 22nd. Ice Cube demand politicians sign a contract with Black America before getting the support of Black vote. That is the right way to go. Why in the world are you blindly giving your support to people who are openly not supporting you? You know they're not supporting you. You can't name in the past 20 years what these politicians have done extremely in the interest of black people, exclusively. And black folks, you got to stop letting people label you colored people. You're no more colored people than white people. Ice Cube demanded this way back in August 22nd. That politicians sign a contract with Black America. This is a man who's following the lead of Frederick Douglass that says power without a demand concede nothing. You want our power? Here's our demands. This man. This morning, Ice Cube released a video entitled "What's in It for Us?" demanding politicians to sign the contract with Black America before they get the support of the black vote. You blindly giving people your support because you're scared of this guy, that is putting you in, that makes you look like a coward. Now, I know some of you won't agree with me or saying this. Do you realize the children of Israel were willing to risk death getting away from the Pharaoh? They separated themselves from the Pharaoh. They wouldn't be in the position that they wouldn't have been able to head to the promised land without detaching themselves. The Pharaoh was using them for every ounce of energy, making them rich while they still was poor. And then Moses came in and said, look, let my people go. And they let them go. He tried to get them to come back in, but that wasn't working. As citizens and lawmakers both were joining to demand a contract for Black America be addressed immediately to finally create a more perfect union all Americans deserve. As such, it is time for a complete paradigm shift in how we run our institutions and operate our country. The problem facing America are too deep and wide to simply reform one another. Let me make sure I get this on. Yeah. Long-lasting solutions demand a comprehensive, thorough rethink of America so that each new approach in each area supports the success of others. This contract with Black America will provide conceptual approaches in several areas. Now, I could go through the bullet points of this, but let's actually go over this contract of America. You can find it at contractwithblackamerica.us. It is still an open format policy, which means He's welcoming ideas from the grassroots, not from political parties, not from organizations that got their hand corporate donors and corporate dollars in it. Strictly from Black America. Now, this is not just Ice Cube. This is Derek Hamilton, professor and executive director of Kiwan Institute at The Ohio State University and incoming Henry Cohen Professor of Economics and Urban Policy and Urban Professor at the New School. So this is not just Ice Cube. These are thought leaders behind this. These are economic professors behind this. So I don't know what somebody told you. This ain't just an idea of a person that's coming up from the hood, even though it's a great idea. You cannot sit here and crap on Ice Cube because the man got an education. He is a very proficient businessman. He's very successful. But he realized this can't come from just him. So he was open to get other people involved. These are professors of universities, economic professors. This contract with Black America strikes at the heart of racism and presents a blueprint to achieve racial economic justice. It was written in the backdrop of the killing of George Floyd, which set off a wave of protests not seen since the civil rights era in 1950s and 60s, and the global pandemic in which the Black mortality rate is more than double that of white rates, in which 45%, nearly half, of Black-owned businesses closed during this pandemic. That the impact of something presumably random, such as a pandemic, however catastrophic it is, can be so linked to one racial identity is highly problematic. And further evidence that as a nation we are failing miserably. This links to a larger political and economic vulnerability. Whether we're in a pandemic or not, the immoral devaluation of Black lives has been engraved in Americans' political economy and is long overdue for a reckoning. Now look, I can go over this, but I really want you to go through this. Okay? Now, me, I think I signed this before. I'll sign it again. I don't know why my pay information is up there. What you doing? Don't be putting my pay up there. Stop. I'll do this later. Sign it. All right, let's take a look at this. After 400 years of unequal treatment, Black Americans have had enough with gradual reform. In a nation that prides itself as the world's greatest democracy, while well-intentioned solutions may have been tried, it is simply too much to ask and oppress people to stay patient, to finally create the more perfect union all Americans deserve. It is time for a complete paradigm shift in how we run this institution, operate our country. While this contract with Black America may seem radical to some, the results will be a harmonious society that benefits everyone rather than the more radical alternative, which is watching the great American experiment coming apart at the seams. The problem facing America are too deep and wide to simply reform one area or another. Long-lasting solutions demand a comprehensive, thorough rethink of America so that each new approach in each area supports the success of the others. This contract with Black America will provide conceptual approaches in several areas, including addressing Black opportunity and representation, bank lending and financial reform, judicial and public policy reform, expansion of the 13th Amendment rights, police reform, reform in Hollywood, and approach to our Confederate past. It will then present more in-depth proposal showing how these guiding principles can be put into action, first through a plan for neo-reconstruction, followed by the American Job Pact, AJP, a plan that addresses jobs and education. All right, so here's representation. Now we're going to break this down. We're going to go over 3 for the next few days, okay? Black opportunity and representation. The case for Progressive initiative meant to redress past wrongs systematically imposed on black Americans economically through many generations, wrong that have had served that had a severe negative impact on African Americans both economically and educationally. The specific case and plan for neo-reconstruction is presented later in the document. A commission will immediately be formed and empowered to quickly put the plan into action. Not to study, put it into action. Not to study this. This ain't a study. These are demands. We're tired of studying. We're only going to study on how to implement. Separately, a plan will also be devised to make Native Americans whole within the same timeline. Now, that's the problem that I got with this, with Q. But the point is, he says separately, a plan will also be devised to make Native Americans whole within the same timeline. So, in other words, we're going to take care of blacks first. You do realize a lot of black natives were considered slaves too. But right now, we're going to focus on black first. Black Americans will be compensated for the value of work contributed by their ancestors, while Native Americans will get back the true value or land promised to them in various treaties. So in other words, Cuba's doing this twofold. He's putting black Americans first, but he's not forgetting Native Americans, because a lot of black people end up being thrust in Native American society. Even though a lot of us were enslaved by Native Americans, a lot of us actually got Native American ancestry in us too. For black Americans to be eligible, they must provide documentation proving their descendants from at least one enslaved person. Let me go over this paragraph again. One by one, separate. Black Americans will be compensated for the value of work contributed by their ancestors. I want you to hear that again. Black Americans will be compensated for the value of work contributed by their ancestors, and they should. While Native Americans will get back their true value or land promised to them in various treaties. So in other words, this ain't got nothing to do with reparations. America need to right their wrongs with Native Americans too. But we want our value. For black Americans to be eligible, they must provide documentation providing their descendants from at least one enslaved person. They must also prove that they have identified as black or African American for at least 10 years prior to the institution of the reparation program. Affirmation. Now I could stop there. You can't go back and forth saying I'm Asian and I'm black. You can't do that when it comes to this. You got to strictly show that you represent yourself as a black or African American for 10 years. Affirmative action for all secondary schools, colleges, or universities, public and private. Black enrollment must meet or exceed the percentage of the black population nationwide, 13.4%. In addition, if the black population in the county the school is located is greater than 13.4%, then enrollment must be increased to that higher percentage. However, 25% black enrollments will satisfy the county requirements if the school can prove that they are a national school with less than 30% enrolled from the state in which the school is located. The same guideline that applies to students will also apply to faculties. In the case of schools not deemed national, which are in counties, states where the black population is less than 13.4%, like Idaho, Montana, etc., the percentage required can be decreased down to a minimum of 5% for clarity enrollment of black Americans greater than the minimum threshold required is always permitted. In other words, I don't care what kind of school you are. You're not going to shut blacks out. we're going to get our shot at getting in that same school. Now, I'm a proponent of us starting our own school, but if you're in an area where there's no black school, you have a right to go to any school, private or public, university, college, secondary school, whatever. He has a plan in here for enrollment. In other words, we should have equal rights when it comes to education, no matter what school it is. Local funding for schools will be determined by an equal per student fund for all schools through the state. There is also extra funding for disabled and disadvantaged students. Extra funding. Extra funding. Change source of funding from property taxes to per student in line with the practice of most advanced nations. Otherwise, poor communities suffer from underfunding perpetually the cycle of poor education. In other words, money's not going to be an excuse. I mean, you may not have the money, but we're going to make it available for you to still get in these schools. Mandatory civil rights and anti-racism classes in all elementary schools. Black scholars will write the textbook and curriculum adopted for these classes. Institute the Black History 365 curriculum. African American history highlight the civilization of Mali, Ghana, Songhai, Egypt, Ethiopia, Nubia, Zimbabwe, and others are incorporated into school world history or social study. This is huge because one of the problems that white society and the Department of Education, one of the things they do is they don't teach true Black American history or Black history worldwide. We learn world history, we learn American history, but we don't learn Black American history, we don't learn Black world history. He's saying this should be mandatory. Mandatory that we have civil rights classes, anti-racism classes, in all elementaries. In other words, white kids, Puerto Rican kids, Asian kids need to learn civil rights and anti-racism in all elementary schools. Black scholars will write the textbooks. Now, look, I would not stop at elementary school. It will be a requirement in middle school, high school, whatever. Cube says he's open to changing this. Cube, you need to change this. You need to be done in every level of schooling. In every grade of schooling, it need to be done. Black scholars will write the textbook, not white scholars, not black bootlicks, but black scholars will write the textbooks and curriculums adopted for these classes. Institute the Black History 365 curriculum. So 365 days we teaching Black history to all people. African history highlights civilizations. World history, social study curriculums. Next, Black representation on all government civil rights investigative bodies. Black representation on all government civil rights investigative bodies. Reform gerrymandering. Reform gerrymandering. So we need to dismantle and rebuild that whole entire system. Districts cannot be designed to minimize the impact of the black vote. In other words, you cannot do the gerrymandering strictly to hinder black vote. We're going to reform that through the Contract of Black America. More polling sites in minority and black neighborhoods so that the number of polling stations provides equal access to black voters as they do white voters in other communities. Lack of access violates the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and the act should be amended to give it more teeth since it is currently not working. Juneteenth should become a federal holiday. Now, me particularly, Cube, I will put in here that I agree with majority of the country in this agenda. We want Election Day to be a paid holiday. Election Day should be a paid holiday. And we should have more easier ways to put in our vote. We should do ranked choice voting, and we should go back to paper ballots. This should be in here. Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. I agree with that. That should be a federal holiday. Equal healthcare facilities in all neighborhoods regardless of demographic. And a formal admission and apology to Black America for past wrong. I believe it is important that you have equal health care. I will put in this that there be no cost health care for Black people. I would like it to be for all people. No cost education for all people, Black people, but especially for Black people. We shouldn't have to worry about health care. It is a right. It is our birthright because we developed this country. And education should be our birthright in this country because we have developed this country. And last but not least, on this particular one that we're doing, representation, a formal admission and apology of Black Americans for past wrong. Now, why do I think that is important? Well, I come from a spiritual background where it's healing when you admit your faults and shortcomings to one another. Because you can only heal one another once you really admit that you're wrong. This nation owes, and I know Bill Clinton tried to apologize for the wrong that was right, but yet at the same time he passed policies to create a new penal system with Joe Biden, and that disproportionately put Blacks in jail, which disproportionately offer free labor to corporations through the private prison system because we had so many Black people in jail for some of the dumbest reasons. Most of them didn't even commit a crime, just wrong place at the wrong time. They end up in the private prison system. And they were utilized for free labor for corporations, which is still plantation mentality. So it's important for America to apologize. All these bullet points, this is why it's important for you to share this video. I can't go into detail because I'm not an economic professor I'm not a brainiac like that, but I can't go over it bullet point by bullet point. Today, we just went over the first framing, just the representation part. Later on, we're going to go through lending reform, judicial reform, constitutional amendment, police reform, entertainment reform, whatever. We're going to go through all that. Okay? Pass this on to other people. A lot of people yapping their mouth don't even know what's in the contract with Black America. They just want to take a whole hard dump on it and dump on that man and don't even know what's in it. You need to stop being an idiot and look at it. You need to stop being an idiot and read it. Get a good understanding. Now, I'm not going to give you the best understanding, but I can go over it bullet point by bullet point. So far, so good. I would add a couple more things in there, but so far, so good. I just went over the contract with Black America. There's a lot of Black agendas out there, and I'm going to be looking at all of them. But we're definitely going to take some time to take a look at this one because this is the one that's getting the most press, the most steam, the most criticism. Even the Biden campaign said if we get elected, we'll come back to this. We're going to see if they're going to keep their word. Most of these politicians are dog-faced liars anyway, left and right. Going to see if they're going to keep their word. Are you going to implement some of these policies? If not, then you're going to have a hard 2022 and a hard 2024. Because this should be the most important thing to Black people than just getting the next person elected. That ain't going to do nothing for you. This contract America is legit. It is real. It's always been legit and real. And you got grassroots movement and professors, the whole 9 yards that is being thrust into this contract with Black America, so we can start gaining some power. Remember what I said. Power without demand can see nothing. This is a demand. You want more power, Black people? Do you understand that you are power? You are yourself a powerhouse in the Democratic and Republican Party, especially in the Democratic Party, because you go out and show your loyalty to them every freaking year in the high 90s. And what do you get for it? You should be given the whole freaking world. You should be running that party. That party should be yours. And I don't care if you got another Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, or whatever as president, vice president. Doesn't mean they run that party. You run that party. You need to wake up to who you are and how much power you got and start taking advantage of your strength in the party. Put a demand out there. This is a perfect demand. That if you want us to remain loyal to you, this is what you're going to have to do. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't want to talk about it. It's non-negotiable. This is what we want. You want us to continue to keep giving you 90% support and winning? Handle that. Don't handle that? We out. We out. We will divest. We will detach. And we will make the decision from the outside whether we should support you or not. But you're not going to count on us when we cannot count on you. So get a copy of that, sign it. If you need to print it off and hand it to some people, if you need to read it, you should go over it with some friends and family. You should have a Zoom meeting and go over it. You should do whatever you can to educate people on the Black Contract for Black America. That's Black. I keep saying Black of America. The Contract for Black America. You should educate your families and friends on it. Stop mocking it. That's the dumbest thing. You got these white supremacists pushing you through media, using the media and using these black bootlicks to shame something that will get you true power. They're not going to get it. And they're not going to try to get it for you. All they're trying to do is jockey for a position while you still got to deal with your struggles of everyday life. Get your head out, NBC, CNN, Fox, get your head out of their behind. And stop letting them shame black people who are really trying to do something for the black community. Go over the contract on your own. We're going to come back here and go through the second bullet point of the contract for Black America. I'm going to put this in the playlist where you can easily go to it and share the entire playlist to everybody. I'm Robert Brown with the Rob Report. I'll holler at you later. I love you. Talk to you later. Peace.